Many of you may have seen Fox News reporting earlier in the week that the Treasury Department sent subpoenas to CodePink co-founder Medea Benjamin and Twitch streamer Hasan Piker as part of an investigation into a humanitarian delegation that brought much needed aid to Cuba in March. Now, that delegation traveled to Cuba as the country was facing and continues to face severe, life-threatening shortages and blackouts caused by the Trump administration's fuel blockade and sanctions campaign against the island nation. Critics say that this is part of the administration's crackdown on anti-war and left-wing activism inside the United States. Joining us to discuss what's going on here is Medea Benjamin herself, the co-founder of CodePink. Medea, welcome back to Breakthrough News.
Nice to be on with you.
Well, I wish it was under better circumstances, but this is just such a wild story, and you are, of course, at the center of it, Medea. So can you tell us, what exactly happened here? Because there were some conflicting reports initially about whether you had personally received an actual subpoena or just questions about an ongoing investigation. So can you clarify what was sent to you, what this investigation is supposedly about, and what exactly the U.S. government appears to be, and Fox News, I guess, appears to be accusing you and others of doing?
I actually didn't get anything, and neither did Hasan Piker. I mean, we heard this on Fox News that there was this subpoena out, and I was going outside my front door looking around for somebody to serve me. And it turns out that it was an email that was sent to CodePink co-founder Jody Evans, and it was so unofficial that it landed in her spam box. And she was looking for something else and just happened to find it. You'd think you'd get a certified letter in the mail or you'd get a subpoena server or something. So it was a letter, and it came from the Treasury Department, from the Office of Foreign Assets Control, known as OFAC. And I don't want to say it's not serious. It is serious because they are asking for all kinds of information. And this is a kind of intimidation tactic that means we have to get a lawyer, that we have to spend a lot of staff time, a lot of energy on answering about 12 very detailed questions that they're asking that include things like, how did you get there? Where did you stay? What did you do every hour that you were there? I guess we have to tell them how many hours we slept. There were 170 people, so I don't know if they want to know what every single person did every single minute of the day. What we brought, and we brought about $600,000 worth of aid. So it's a lot of information that they want. And of course, this is to make people think, should I go to Cuba? Should I keep doing humanitarian aid? And the answer to that is yes. We can't be intimidated. In fact, we have to use this as another reason that we're so angry at the U.S. government and redouble our efforts.
Well, Medea, it's such a shocking report, and Fox has been kind of like self-quoting. They release their report, then they report on the report that they released, and just kind of like generating their own media tornado in a sense. But, all of this kind of obscures and is trying to gloss over what was really happening, which is that you were on a humanitarian delegation. So, why did you go to Cuba in the first place? What did you witness on the ground? This was 2 months after the U.S. imposed the oil embargo, in a sense, oil blockade on Cuba. And it just seems kind of crazy because what the U.S. government is doing right now is treating the delivery license, legal delivery of humanitarian aid as something suspicious and even criminal.
Absolutely, Emily. You bring up very important points. One, everything we did was legal. We went there illegally. They forced us, to the U.S. government, to stay in the hotel we stayed in. And then they turn around and say, you stayed in this fancy hotel. Well, there are hundreds of other hotels that are on the list where you cannot stay. There is an exemption for taking food and medicine. So that's what we did. Everything we did was legal. And I think, whoever is behind all of this, they know that it's legal. So it's just trying to, make our lives difficult. But also what you say, Emily, is so important, that we are doing the only moral thing that you can do in the light of a policy that is so unconscionable. And if we're going to stand by and watch while the U.S. Undertakes a program of collective punishment to make the lives of Cuban people so miserable that they will overthrow their government, we have no moral conscience as a people. And the people who are suffering the most are the babies, are the elderly. The infant mortality rate has doubled. It used to be 4.0. That's 4 deaths per 1,000 live births.
Mm-hmm.
It was lower than it was in the United States because Cuba had such a good healthcare system. Now it is more than doubled. So that means that what the U.S. is doing is actually killing babies. And I don't know, I don't think, the listeners and the watchers of your program feel very good about a policy designed to kill babies, designed to make people miserable. What did we see when we were there? We saw how miserable people are. We saw that there are people who live in an apartment building who can't get water because the water needs electricity. We saw people who are living on 3 hours of electricity a day. We saw people who can't get to work because they have no transportation, or if they do get to work, there's nothing to do because there's no electricity. The U.S. is pulling the plug on the Cuban economy, and we can't stand by and let that happen.
I mean, it's just completely wild that the actual criminal activity here is starving a country. And they're basically trying to criminalize saving babies at this point. And to that, I want to play a recent clip from White House counterterrorism czar Sebastian Gorka. And it's a really revealing clip. So can we put that up on the screen?
We're going to label terrorists as terrorists. Whether it's cartels, whether it's jihadis, or whether it's, sadly, the Americans who are left-wing, who are radical, and because they subscribe to some anarchic, anti-fascist, or radically pro-transgender ideology, think they can kill Americans, whether it's 6-year-old little baby children at the Annunciation Church and school, or whether it's your friend and my friend Charlie Kirk.
So there you have it. He's openly talking about targeting the left, anti-fascists, and basically progressive activists, somehow saying they're murderers and equating them with like Al-Qaeda. So I guess my question to you is, do you see this investigation as part of a broader effort by this administration to criminalize dissent and intimidate anti-war organizing and, most importantly, brand dissidents as domestic terrorists in the U.S.?
Absolutely. And you know very well that what we care about is saving lives. We don't want to kill people anywhere in the world, and we don't want to see babies dying anywhere in the world, or elderly people not having access to food. We don't want that anywhere. So, we're just good, moral people, and they're trying to label us as terrorists or as pawns or as actually financed by some foreign government, whether it's the Chinese, at one point it was the Russians, at one point it was Chavez in Venezuela. They're always trying to find a way to minimize the fact that the vast majority of people in CodePink, for example, are volunteers. They're doing this on their own dime. The people that I'm with in Congress every day who go in to try to change U.S. policy, they're paying for their own lunches. They're paying for their own bus fare. I mean, everything is volunteer because they care about these issues. And we see how they're trying to criminalize us. There are members of Congress, including the head of the Intelligence Committee, Tom Cotton, who asked for us to be investigated, whether it's because we don't want to bomb Iran or because we don't want to genocide people in Palestine or we don't want to be bombing Lebanon. Whatever the issue is, they try to find a way to say that we are representing a foreign government. And the irony of all of that is that so many of the people in Congress are bought and paid for by a foreign government agency, which is AIPAC. They meet constantly with Netanyahu and other Israeli officials, and they represent and is a foreign government. We don't. And yet nobody is investigating them. On the contrary.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, a lot of people have pointed out the fact that far-right influencer Nick Shirley stayed in one of those hotels on the list of hotels that you cannot stay at and made it very public.
Stay in. It's a beautiful Hotel Nacional. I hope one day we can take a big group and all stay there.
Yes, but of course he did stay there while he was going on his kind of anti-Cuba tirade. But all that to say, Medea, you of course have been involved in anti-war organizing for decades, organizing against the war in Iraq, Afghanistan, strong supporter for Palestine, Cuba, and beyond. Does this moment that we're facing right now with kind of renewed repressive acts against the left and the anti-war movement remind you of previous periods of repression against the anti-war movement? Or does this feel kind of qualitatively different or dangerous in some way?
It does feel qualitatively different. I mean, certainly I wasn't around during the 50s. I'm sure it felt like that. During the days of the Iraq War, for example, I mean, there were a lot of people who sent us hate messages, death threats, but they were not the government. It was individuals who said, oh, you're not supporting the troops, you're anti-American. Now it's the government. And it does feel very different. And, we've seen what they've done to the students. We've seen what they've done to Palestinian Americans. We've been watching this. But, your last guest, Omar, didn't want to leave on a negative note. And I don't either, because I think it's so important that we inspire each other to keep working on this. And we are now putting out a call for encampments over the summer in July and August, that people get together, whether it's outside a military base or it's outside of a weapons industry, or it's just in any old place where you want to get together and create community and teach each other what we need to learn. And we want to focus on how we can really go against the $1.5 billion Pentagon budget that this administration is trying to pass, which is a 50% increase in what was already a ridiculously high $1 trillion budget. So we feel that we've got to get together, whether our main issue is the environment or the women's rights or issues around Black lives or whatever it is, Medicaid for all, Medicare for all. We need to all come together and talk about how we're going to effectively build a movement that confronts what we're facing right now. So I just want to put a plug. We're in the very beginning stages of this. And if anybody wants to join us in building a coalition and groups that will create their own encampments, no matter where they are, let's use this time to come together and build.
And in the in honor of not leaving on a negative note, I do want to ask you, we've seen some lawmakers, including I saw Congresswoman Delia Ramirez speak out in support of CodePink and condemning this fascistic attack by the U.S. government on anti-war organizers who just don't want to see babies die. What has the broader response been like so far? Has there been significant solidarity and a kind of public backlash to this investigation?
We've certainly seen solidarity from people in different organizations, lots and lots of solidarity. I've heard from people I hadn't heard from in like 20 years. And they understand the whole issue of, first they came after the Palestinian Americans and they came after us, that this is an attack on all of us who are just trying to build a better country, a better world, a better society. So we've had a lot of solidarity. I haven't seen so much from members of Congress, but we do have a lot of friends in Congress, and they're all facing their own problems. I don't know if it's the moment for them to come out and say, let's all get together and support CodePink. But more importantly, they are putting forth war powers resolutions to stop the U.S. government from invading Cuba. And there is a war powers resolution now in both the Senate and the House. And that is so important because we have to send these messages to Trump that he doesn't have the authority to invade Cuba, just like he didn't have the authority to invade Iran and got himself into a mess there. But maybe we can stop the US invasion. And along with that, we have to stop these crippling sanctions, this naval blockade that is not letting any oil get to the island. In fact, I just heard that the Russian shipment that they were expecting, the second one, has just turned around. So it is important to support those members of Congress who are trying to stop the US policy towards Cuba.
Well, Medea Benjamin, co-founder of CodePink, and I gotta say, you were probably like the most committed anti-war activist. You're all over the place, especially in Congress, holding the powerful feet to the fire. So it's no wonder you have garnered the ire of all of these very powerful individuals who want zero dissent. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll keep people updated on this story. Really appreciate you, Medea.
Thank you, and thank you for Breakthrough News that really educates and mobilizes and inspires people.